Well, I'm sat down already. I've been sat down. Does chat look a bit weird overflowing into the black? Maybe I'll move it. Oh, not this one. Wow. Maybe it should be going into the black. It kind of makes it easier to read, honestly. Keep it over here. We've got Weibo versus EDG. I don't have my spreadsheet open. It's not a good start. Let's get the spreadsheet. Hello, Cacophonous. Welcome. Let's get this sorted. Oops, not game 15. Jesus, that would be a long series. I mean, best of 8. Well, I guess it would be best of 15, but like you'd have to win 8 games to win. Basically been scammed by your schools. What happened is you've got to work this year full time, and for your work you need a pass. Okay. So I'm guessing they didn't give you... they gave you the wrong pass. I see. That sounds awkward. Well, that's unfortunate. And there's no way they can fix that. Ouch. Well, that's not good, is it? Move this over here. And I can make room for more the next team. Well, shit. Oh, I muted my mic because I just did the biggest sneeze. Anyway. We had a headache all day. Well, now you get to listen to me talk, so I can't say that that will help. I won't particularly say that will help. Unfortunately. You need to listen to me drone on. Okay. Let's get the review started. So, this is the finals of the LPL Regional Qualifier. Whichever team wins this goes to Worlds as the 4th seed from the LPL. Obviously, we know it's Weibo Gaming. That's who we're reviewing. But those are the stakes of the series. If we look at the bans, first off, I can see LeBlanc is a blue ban. We've got Kaisa is open. Maokai is banned by red, but outside of that, everything's open. So the big things I'm looking at, as always, I think I'm going to start putting these at the top, actually. Just so that I can emphasize how much we should be looking at these, is Kaisa, Tristana, Ivern. All three of these are open right now. Now this kind of benefits Weibo, and I think you could argue that what they've done by banning none of them, so if we're jumping straight into red bans, you could argue that what they've done by banning none of the three broken champions, none of the three broken champs, they're winning because they trade 1 on B1 for 2 on R1, R2. I think the best way to draft is to ban all three of them. This puts the draft in Blue's hands because Blue can ban one of them. This leads to Red either banning none, in which case Blue get to choose which of the remaining ones they want, or Red ban one, in which case Blue get 1 and Red get 0. So I think the best way to go is that Red should be banning Kai'Sa, Tristana, Ivern. I think they're the 3 best B1s on the patch. But as it happens, I don't think this is too bad because they've noticed that Blue have banned none of them, and they've banned none of them. It ended up alright, but I think you can get punished for taking this line. Looking at R1, R2, the Tristana's taken away, so what you would expect to see is Kai'Sa and Ivern taken away by Weibo. Let me just mute this and put it on speed up. Let's see if they actually do that. Okay, they don't take away Ivern, and they blind Rel. So the Kai'Sa is good and expected. Rel pushes you towards engage when Blue haven't committed to a theme at all yet. Why can I not spell committed? Is it double M, double T? That looks right. Committed to a theme. Yeah. This makes it really easy for Blue to start picking disengaged champions. Thank you, Dutch. It is double M, double T. I'm a good streamer. I know how to spell, I swear. So yeah, the Rel, it pushes you towards engage when you shouldn't really be committing to anything. Ivern leaves it open. You could say that the advantage that Rel has over Ivern is that Rel is a flex, but technically Ivern is a flex. Solo lane Ivern is playable. Depends on matchups. I wouldn't put it mid into Tristana here, because she's just going to get free reign to do whatever she wants, but the top matchup could be playable. But even so, jungle Ivern is just so unbelievably broken that I think you should just be picking it. And now, by taking Rel, you're also giving Ivern, who feels at home in a disengaged themed comp. So I think this R2 is a mistake, the R1 is completely fine. Let's see how the draft develops. Okay, so Ivern isn't taken away. And then on R3, Sejuani Renekton has been picked. Now EDG's comp is leaning heavily into engage. So we can pick up our own disengage tools. I think Poppy is at a premium here. Poppy at a premium because it can triple roll flex with jungle support top. Has a good matchup into the Renekton top. And all 3 enemy champions are wanting to engage using dashes. This is really important. So I think Poppy is by far the best R3 in the game right now. Consider Illaoi one of the best isolated Renekton counters. and they're versus full engage with tank jungle. This is for later in the draft, though. But this is what I'm thinking about already. Let's see what they end up going on R3. Okay, they take Jace. Jace is bad. Here's why Jace is bad. Firstly, the mid matchup is slightly losing for Jace. Tristana has a slight edge. So this is a bit of a self-counter. As well as that, you have the fact that Jace as a poke champion, immobile and squishy, is thematically weak to engage. If Weibo continue to draft hard engage, and not if Weibo, sorry, if EDG continue to draft hard engage, and Weibo don't answer with any disengage tools, which EDG now have the potential to ban out, by the way, they're in for a world of hurt. Okay. So that's where we're at so far. So far, I think Weibo are actually losing draft despite getting Kai'Sa Jace on 13-13. Like, thematically, they're struggling. Now, as for second round bans, what should we be looking at? Second round bans. We should probably look to target support. So we should be targeting support. Our win condition right now is poke. Don't give them even more reliable engage. Nort, Rakan, etc. I think we should look to take away these sorts of things. Let's see what gets banned out. We're taking away Melio? Okay, so Melio doesn't really make sense as a ban. He doesn't give EDG any more ability to reach our high range carries. I guess he technically provides a little bit of auto attack range, but that doesn't help the Renekton or the Sedge. Or realistically, it doesn't help the Trist either. Like, there might be very fringe circumstances where it does, but I mean, Kai'Sa's shooting from 3,000 range, right? It's not actually going to do it. Whereas something like a Rakan, like something that can actually go in, a Nautilus, like Nautilus can, you know, pull the carry into you. That's much more of what EDG are looking for. So the Melio ban's not it. The Alistar ban, Alistar has potential to find some engages, but in general, he's a disengaged themed champion. They're banning for isolated lane counters versus Rel, but Rel isn't necessarily going bot lane. I definitely didn't spell that right. Necessarily going bot lane. So I really don't like their second round of bans. I think EDG, especially if our R4 pushes us even further into like not having the ability to peel these carries, then more engage for the side of EDG is going to be really scary and hard to deal with. Let's see what we get on R4. So on R4, we still need disengage tools. Disengage and peel. See what we end up with. Poppy is still available. That's one thing to consider as well. Ornn. So Ornn is really good at front to back team fighting, but he prefers when the fight is moving away. His R is more of an engage tool than a disengage tool. he can kind of put Q on his carries and use E to peel, but that's about it. Ornn, as a way to peel, Ornn isn't a very good pick. That's not what Ornn is good at, and it doesn't help them in the same way that like a Poppy or a Gragas, like Poppy can block the dashes and ult them away. She can also push them away with her E. Gragas knocks them out of their engage. He can ult them away. He slows them with his Q. He creates space with his Q. These champions are a lot better disengaged thematic top laners than Ornn is. Even Illaoi, like I was saying, Illaoi doesn't peel by CCing, she peels by standing on her carry, and if you're going to dive on their carry, then you're going to dive on their Illaoi, and diving onto Illaoi is scary. So it's peel by the threat of death, is what Illaoi does. Let's see how EDG... I would imagine they continue to pick up engage tools. No, they pick Braum. Okay, I mean, this is really weird, like what EDG are doing, because if they just drafted more engage, the Kai'Sa Jace are really vulnerable. There's not a lot stopping them from getting popped by, you know, they could play like, I don't know if Uzi plays Samira, but they could play Ashe, something like an Ashe Nautilus or an Ashe Blitz. A lot of these things could be quite strong. They could also potentially look for a Neela angle with the double melee and the low range Kai'Sa, but yeah, I think engage support plus an ADC that can get things going. They could go Varus, they could go Ashe, Samira. Yeah, any of these things would be much better for EDG. So now on R5, our options are a bit different because what we expected EDG to want to do, they didn't do. So this changes the draft. So now there's a bit of onus on us to get to the Tristana and the Zeri, but there's a couple of things that are going in our favor as Weibo. So, one, EDG have elected to play into the range war, where nobody's really going in until people are poked out. Jace Kai'Sa win this versus Zeri Trist. 2, EDG are full AD. If we draft, like, we already have Rel and Ornn. If we draft even more durability, how do EDG kill us? So, in summary, we want something to protect Jace and Kai'Sa while they poke, that also likes to itemize armor. We could go like Death Stance Viego for poke resets, but I still think Poppy crushes this draft. I think Poppy is really good in this draft. So let's see what we end up getting. Okay, the R5 I'm really happy with. Poppy, it took them a while to find it, but in the end, Poppy comes in. Now, this is one of those drafts that's going to get rated lower than the outcome of the draft, because the outcome of the draft is actually fairly decent for Weibo. Like, they've ended up in a battle between two reasonably ranged carries, but their carries have more range. They've got a damage spread. They've got physical here, magic here, physical here, whereas it's physical, 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 physical all over for EDG. So itemizing armor is crazy. Even Kai'Sa building AP can itemize Zhonya's. Jace can look to go tabbies this game rather than lucidity boots. So it's really easy for Weibo to itemize. And yeah, their carries have longer range. The only issue is, and this is quite a big issue, if they're not careful, they can get snowballed on, and the reason for that is that they have 3 losing lanes. Zeri's outranging Kai'Sa, while Braum prevents Rel from ever going in and becoming useful. Tristana is beating Jace in the isolated 1v1. Renekton is beating Ornn in the lane phase. So all of their lanes are losing. However, if they can keep the game relatively stable, they will just win. So a lot of it's going to come down to execution, but in terms of the process, this is what I wanted to talk about. We've talked about how at every stage they've made mistakes. Obviously R5 I think was really good, but these bans I think were bad. They didn't cover what they were weak to. The R4 I think was bad. So a lot going wrong. Also, why am I getting Discord notifications? I'm supposed to be on streamer mode. 1 second. There we go. Shouldn't be going blip, blip. Yes. So yeah, in terms of rating it, they're going to score lower than you would expect, even though I think they won the draft. I actually think this was quite a poor draft, and I'm going to give them a 3. And that's just because of how exploitable this draft was at every stage. It would be a bad draft if they didn't save it so hard by picking Poppy at the end, I think. But yeah, don't be fooled by the fact that they won this draft. This was not a good draft. And they are winning the game. They actually managed to generate leads rather than fall behind, which is, you know, that's with a draft like this, if they get ahead, they are just going to stomp. And I would imagine that's what happened. They just started to pull ahead, and from there, there's nothing EDG can do with their draft. Let me add the winner in. This is WBG Gaming versus EDG. Game 1. Oh, yeah. It was WBG Gaming 1, and then WBG Gaming 1, and then here, WBG Gaming 1. Cool. Find game 2. Okay, let's duplicate my notes. Let's copy this. Okay. Looking at game 2, so let's check the bans. There is... So this time, EDG, on blue side again, they've realized that their line was really weak to Poppy, and they've banned it. But they've also banned Vi on blue, which is very strange. But Tristana is banned this time by blue. Same bans here, Maokai and LeBlanc. So Trist and Kai'Sa are open. Not Trist, sorry. Kai'Sa and Ivern are open. And EDG are first picking Rel. So bans, same as last time. This time, blue ban one of the 3. And this leads to a scenario where it should... I can't type. Where it should be a Ivern for Kai'Sa trade. Blue are favored in this because they get to choose. So this line of bans is losing for red. Now blue actually ignore Kai'Sa and Ivern. So on our 1 or 2, we have the option to pick up Kai'Sa and Ivern because blue ignored them. We want to lean or keep available towards disengage. we don't want to draft in a way that locks us out of disengage. The reason for this is because of the Rel B1. Rel is most comfortable when she's playing in an engage comp, so we want to leave our option open to hard commit to a disengage comp. Now this time Poppy is banned, but there's still things like Ali, like Braum later down the line. You don't want to pick them now. Now I would just pick Kai'Sa Ivern. But okay, they pick up Kai'Sa, so same again. Kai'Sa good. Azir. Let me think about Azir. So, Azir won't be flexed, first of all. This will be mid. In terms of pure theory, this can be flexed. This can be put into top lane, but it won't. I think it's better into Rel B1 than it is when we see other Azir slams. I think this is fine. This leaves Ivern open, for one, which obviously I don't like. I think Ivern should be being picked, and it was last series, so I'm not sure why it's not this series, especially because Weibo were picking it and they were showing that it was good. They were winning with it. So I'm not sure why Ivern's being ignored. But the Azir is... its main weakness is being outranged. Rel doesn't really function in a poke comp. Like that doesn't really work. So Azir in general makes Rel feel awkward. So I think this Azir is okay. The only thing I don't like about picking it here is that you don't pick Ivern. We then get, okay, we get Jace Xayah. So R3, we see both carries this game. Both are physical. Xayah is outranged by Azir and massively outranged by Kai'Sa. If we draft to protect our carries and ban AP tops or jungles, we make life very difficult for EDG. They're going to need to find a way with a Xayah to hit our Azir and our Kai'Sa, and that is very, very difficult. It makes Rel feel like she needs to go in, but you don't want to be running into the Azir. We can also draft other things that she doesn't want to be going in. I think Braum would be a really solid pick here. It almost forces Rel into the jungle, which removes the ability to play AP carry jungle, which they really need magic damage on EDG. So I think Braum is thematically really good, and lane counters Rel, making her want to go jungle, denying AP carry jungle picks. This is really important, because EDG really need magic damage right now. They've picked Jace and they've picked Xayah. Now, in theory, EDG could play Jace top. But we have R5, and that makes this very difficult. Okay, so let's see if we take Braum. No, we take Sedge. Okay. We take Sedge. So far, we have no melee champions. We don't want to engage onto the enemy. Sedge is playing Peel here. Peel here. I don't know if Ryan's in the chat right now, but I'm sure Ryan will look at this and say, yeah, this is a really awkward Sejuani game. Yeah, it's not the best Sedge angle. Also Sedge top has become, well, it's much worse than it used to be. So this isn't a flex. Although it does have a really good matchup into Jace. So there is that. I think there's no world where we shouldn't have taken Braum, and I would expect EDG to ban that out. Now, as we've said, EDG, it's kind of similar to last draft. They need ways to get to this Azir and this Kai'Sa. They also need magic damage. I think like a Jarvan Rumble on R4, R5 would be pretty good for EDG, so I'd probably look to take away Rumble. Rumble ban. Maybe a Kennen ban. It's like an AP engage. Let me just title this. Second round bans. Yeah, Rumble ban, Kennen ban. What else can we look for here? They need Snap Engage with AP. We could maybe do a Gragas ban. An AP Gragas trying to pick us off with his ultimate. Things like this. Let's see what we end up going for. Okay, we're banning Melio. Melio ban, same as last draft. It's not what EDG want. Although this time, to be fair, the Melio does give Xayah a relevant range increase because it allows her to hit Azir. So the Melio range on Xayah is actually relevant in this particular case. However, no, maybe not. However, maybe. However, is it likely that Rel is not going support? Maybe they want to go Rakan, and Rakan would be a reasonable engage tool. So we could maybe look to ban out Rakan. Maybe they go like Rakan with AP top. I'm still thinking their best line would probably be Jarvan Rumble with Rel on top and, you know, isolate the carries that way. Something like that. Let's see what else we ban out. Nautilus. Okay. So Nautilus is an engaged support. Has really reliable lockdown onto Azir or Kai'Sa. Not as much snap engage as something like a Rakan, though. Or Jarvan Rumble combo. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they missed... I think they missed the ball on these bans. R4. Same as R3. Braum wasn't banned, which is huge for us. Outside of that, there's Alistar. Good lane counter into Rel, which again makes it flex into jungle and denies AP jungler. Also disengage team. We should save top for R5. I think it's really good to save top for R5 here. Let's see what we end up picking up. No, we blind Renekton. Okay. We blind Renekton because we're hyper-focused on Renekton Sedge. It's not actually that bad in this game because he can hard itemize armor. Currently, at least. I'll talk about this in a second. And the enemy team want to run into him. Or, well, they don't want to. Like, Xayah and Jace don't want to run in. That's not, but they need to, because we have Azir and Kai'Sa. And they're outraged. It's not that they want to, it's that they need to. But we are now really weak to a Rumble and Jarvan alongside. Rumble will win top matchup, force MR itemization, or melt everyone. So I think Rumble is like really huge for EDG now. No, they just go on. And they go Alistar. Okay, we're absolutely fine. And then on R5, Braum again. Multiple things it does now. Multiple things it does. One, almost no magic damage on EDG, so Braum can itemize armor and become a third tank. 2, disengage, provides heal, wins lane into alley. 3, melee support, synergy with Sedge makes Drake stacking more of a realistic option. Normally with Kai'Sa you don't really have that option, but the Drakes will melt with Sedge, Braum, Kai'Sa. That is a Drake melting trio. And then 4, the E blocks on R, forcing him to do the really unreliable ult backwards and then send it forwards engages. So I think Braum is just a complete turbo pick now. And they go Leona. Leona is literally the opposite of what we need in this draft. We don't need Leona at all. Leona wants to go in, we want to not go in. We want to set up, we want to poke, and we want to play a war of attrition into their lack of magic damage. Leona at least does the 1 really well. She fulfills that. She kind of provides some peel. I don't think she's really that great in lane into alley compared to Braum. She does have the melee support synergy with Sedge, so at least that's still there. And then there's no block on the Ornar, so it's a lot worse than the Braum would be. But I think Weibo should still be favoured in this draft. The problem is that, once again, there's multiple places where they're giving EDG opportunities, and also multiple places where they're not capitalising on opportunities from EDG. Now, this time, I think this draft was better. The Kai'Sa Azir is pretty good. The Sedge is fine. The Renekton, in this instance, is fine. And then the Leona drops the ball. Their bans, overall, I think were pretty bad. But I think this is better than the poor draft that we saw last time. So let's give this a 4 and put it as mid, because their early drafting was pretty solid, and they dropped it off as they went later into the draft. Let's check who wins this game. I think they are still favoured in this draft, like I said, but it seems close currently. Do they win, or do they throw it here? Did EDG win? Yeah, EDG won this game. Yeah, the Leona makes absolutely no sense, Victor. I agree. Like, I don't know, Braum is such an insane pick in that draft in particular, so not sure why they didn't go for that. Right. I'll be back in just a minute. Hello, I'm back. Right, let's find game 3. Let's duplicate the notes. Here we go. Okay, so this time we've got a side swap. So we've now got Weibo onto blue side. So let's see how this changes. Their bans are relatively similar. We can see that Maokai is banned by blue. And I think this shows EDG have a much better understanding of what should be banned on red. The only thing that's missing is the Ivern, but Weibo have shown that they're unwilling to play Ivern. So Trist is red band, Kaiser's red band, LeBlanc is red band. Now, blue bands. Is there anything in particular to talk about here? Let's see. All of the champs Weibo ban here are disengage or hard to run into. So Xayah is a disengage themed champion. Maokai is very, very good at disengage, despite being a flexible champion. It's one of the things that you can do very well. And Jax, if you have to engage into Jax, Jax is happy, right? It basically just gets him onto you for free. So yeah, this does cover their B1 somewhat, but and let's go into B1. B1 Rel, same problems EDG showed with it. Easy for red to start leaning, not committing, but leaning towards disengage. Also, Poppy is open, which is just a really turbo pick whenever you see Rel. So, yeah, I don't like B1 Rel. I think Rel is a powerful pick with good role flex potential. But you need the enemy to show weakness to engage in their draft in order to be picking Rel. I think an equivalent of this is Braum. So last game we were talking about how strong Braum would be, and the reason that Braum would be so strong is that EDG's draft was so weak to disengage. And in the same vein, if the enemy's draft is really weak to engage, then Rel becomes a really, really powerful champion. She's one of the best engaged champions in the game. But she is so very hyper-focused on engaging. She can try and peel, similar to what we were talking about with Ornn before, but her best mode is when she's engaging. And because of that thematic inflexibility, I don't think she's a good B1. The response is Renekton Sedge. So yeah, this is a very, very powerful top jungle package that we're seeing a lot. Technically, the Renekton is also a flex pick. It makes it very hard to pick like melee mid if things like Sylas, right? If the enemy are able to flex their Renekton into mid lane, things like Yasuo just becomes unplayable. But I don't think anybody in this game is considering that, especially with the Azir being locked in. Now, the Azir on B2, B3, Azir, well, both of EDG's champions are tanky and want to go in. Azir bringing moderate range. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things in the game currently that outrange Azir, but compared to Sejuani Renekton, right, he's bringing a good amount of range and also disengage tools from your mid laner. He's a solid pick here. Azir, yeah, it's not a bad Azir game. EDG can potentially, if Weibo make it, all about Azir somehow, then EDG can look to pick high range carries, things like Zeri, Jinx, things like Xerath. Now this patch is 13.13, which, if you remember, is before the Xerath changes, I believe. So Xerath not as strong as he is currently, or was a couple of patches ago, because I think he got tuned down a little bit, but not too much. But yeah, this Azir, again, it's not a bad Azir. It's a reasonable time to pick Azir. Alongside it, We take Ornn. Okay. So, Ornn... It's pretty good at surviving Renekton's Edge, which is most of what we get from currently analysing EDG's draft. It doesn't mind when the enemy is running into it, and it outscales. I think the pick is Pine. The pick is Pine. The pick is fine. Yeah, it's okay here. And then I would imagine, are they just going to pick Jace on R3? Yeah, okay, they pick Jace on R3. So, into second round bans, I think the R3 Jace is such a massive blunder. Okay, see you later, Dutch. Have a good sleep. The R3 Jace is such a massive blunder because, once again, as we keep seeing for some reason, full AD from the side of EDG. So if we can ban to make it as hard as possible to get magic damage onto EDG, then it's good. Also, we're looking like disengage, so we want to ban ranged, like high range champions. Okay, so how, in the roles that are remaining, which is AD carry and support, or bot lane and support, how can EDG get range and magic damage? Number one, Ziggs. This should be instantly banned. Okay, the Ziggs should be off the table. After that, there's things like AP Varus. This is potential. There's Ezreal. Ezreal could itemize more into AP. Zeri doesn't deal magic damage anymore. I'm thinking like Karthus, but it's not going to be picked. Kai'Sa is banned. That maybe AP Twitch or Cogmore. Yeah, that's actually solid. So there's Cogmore, there's AP Twitch. I think these are all things that Weibo would struggle against and kind of give EDG a way out of the hole that they've put themselves in. Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy. So I think let's see if they can take away these. Vi taken away, doesn't matter for us. Nautilus taken away. Again, not too worried about the support picks, although there is the potential as well, actually, yeah, in support. There's the potential for things like Zyra, like Brand, Vel'Koz, these sort of things, but people don't play them. Okay, so this should be a Ziggs from EDG. No, it's a Rakan? Oh, okay. Herein lies the problem. On our B4, B5, we're now really vulnerable to what I said above. And this is more of a ban issue because our bans made it really hard to pick B4, B5. This would be fine if we banned Ziggs, but Ziggs stomps draft for red now because we can't reach Ziggs or Jace, and they have both damage types in poke. I think it becomes really, really difficult for us to play if they pick Ziggs, but this is more of a ban issue than a pick issue. Is there a way we can navigate around this, given that we didn't ban Ziggs? I think there potentially is. I think we could replace a Fel Milio with something like Ezreal. Ezreal gives us the... Because what they're doing is they're drafting more disengage, right? With the Milio and the Aphelios. Because Sejuani, Renekton, Rakan, they all want to go in, right? And if there's no Ziggs, the Ziggs kind of transforms their comp into a poke comp. But if there's no Ziggs, that doesn't happen. So, Ezreal gives us some more range. It helps out in the range department. Again, the best thing to do would have just been to ban these magic damage range champions in bot lane, but now we have to figure out a way to deal with it because the ban isn't there. So we could go Ezreal. Support alongside that, we could take Karma. Both of these champs, they can play kite back, but they can also play poke. So I think an Ezreal Karma bot lane would be a lot better for us now that we've reached this position. Okay, and EDG go Lucian. So again, I think this is the third game in a row where Weibo have won draft, but not... They seem to be winning draft by EDG being really bad at drafting. Like, EDG are drafting terribly. And if I was making a video on EDG, I would be rating them so very low. But Weibo, at least in this draft, the biggest mistake is that they didn't ban the Ziggs and they B1'd the Rel. Outside of that, I think everything's acceptable. This B4, B5, again, is really weak to the Ziggs that they didn't ban. Maybe it's possible. I can't, as someone who doesn't have inside info, I can't rate drafts based on this. I can only rate them on pure theory and what we see on stage. But maybe we know that Uzi is literally incapable of playing Ziggs. And if that's the case, then, you know, not banning Ziggs becomes much more reasonable. But when there's one champion that just just lets EDG play, there's no way you shouldn't be banning it. Again, I don't think this draft was good because of where they dropped the ball. Like I said, on B1, R3 I think is... Yeah, R3, R2, B2, B3, sorry. B2, B3 are fine. And then B4, B5 are bad because the second round of bans are bad. Yeah, I think I'm going to give this a mid again, which, you know, it's a 4. It's a solid 4. We'll take a 4. And Weibo did win the game, which I would... Honestly, if they didn't win that game... Let me check how the game went, because if they didn't win with this draft, I would be so very shocked. Because it gets to, like, this point in the game. Look at Ornn's items. He has Sunfire, he has Radiant, and he has Tabbies. And there's also Sunfire, Radiant, Tabbies on Rel. And it's like, how does this draft kill them? They just can't. So, yeah, I think they stomped draft in this game, but more because EDG suck than Weibo being good. Now we've got the final game. I think it was only 4 games. I don't know why I have this here, but yes. Let's duplicate my notes again. Okay, game 3. Let's look at the bans. So we've got Rel from blue. It's EDG back on blue, so we're back rating red side again now. And we've got Trist on blue. And then on red, we're only banning Maokai. So again, in terms of bans, red bans, we've kind of copied game 2. We've copied game 2, where Ivan and Kaisa are both available. And we're letting blue choose which they would like. One thing to note is that LeBlanc is open, but I don't think LeBlanc is nearly as strong as people were giving it credit for. And as long as you make sure you have reasonable lockdown for it, it's yeah, it's not great, especially on B1. Now you get to choose your mid matchup. Yeah. So for Weibo, what do we want to draft? I mean, I think we want to pick R1, R2. It's Kaiser Ivan again. They go Kaiser Poppy. Okay, so again, picking up Kaiser, good. Poppy. It does bring lockdown for LeBlanc. Okay, it does do this. Poppy W can make Wing in as LeBlanc awkward, but a lot of the time you're not going to be Wing into range of the Poppy anyway. She can try and knock her out, but it's pretty unreliable. The other thing is that LeBlanc with static Harvester, or even better, Ludens, but people weren't playing that, functions as a poke champ. Poppy as a disengage champ really struggles against poke drafts. So I don't think Poppy's great here. It does flex 3 rolls. Range becomes premium for blue side now. However, we still have the potential. We still have potential to draft more engage. So fully committing to range isn't ideal, or isn't easy for blue, let's say. Let's see what we end up with on B2, B3. So they're going Sejuani and Blind Fiora. Okay. So on R3, now that we see, I think Sedge Fiora was really bad for EDG. They're both weak to Poppy. We have the potential to move Poppy to top now. Solid matchup into Fiora. We can still pick Ivan. That's what I was thinking. We can still pick Ivan. I mean, I would still just pick Ivan. Let's consider what else we could do. I don't think there's any jungler that I would rather pick than Ivan. I can't think of a better pick than Ivan. Let's see what they actually do. Okay, they take Jace. Jace can be quite vulnerable to Sedge LeBlanc. We're creating a small window of weakness, or a small area of weakness in our mid lane, but Jace could be used as a Fiora counter here. So, do I hate Jace as much, or not hate, do I dislike Jace as much as I normally would? I don't think so, because the Jace could be used as a Fiora answer. And Jace in lane into Fiora does really, really well. So it's still a flex. Not as good as if we just picked Ivan. But keeps our options open. Jace Kaiser makes drafting anything other than engage really rough for blue. So now we want to start banning engage tools. So second round bans. We have Jace Kaiser, hard poke. They need to kill our carries. They have support and AD available. So we should be banning engage supports. I think Rakan is pretty rough into Poppy, so we can ignore that. There's Nautilus, maybe we could get rid of. Leona as well, even though Poppy can stop the E. Same for Nautilus, she can stop the Q, but like the CC still goes through and she can still combo off of that. Potentially a Blitzcrank. Things like this. This is what we should be banning. We're taking away Zeri. Zeri doesn't make a lot of sense, because it can't contend with the range of Jace Kaiser. It can't keep up with this range. But you're picking it for range, but it's not as much range as this. So you're putting yourself into a range battle and you're losing. Sivir is interesting. Sivir is interesting because it makes engaging for the rest of the draft, rest of Blue's draft, much easier with the Sivir ult. So Sivir, I don't mind this ban. In regards to support, at least we can guarantee support counter pick on R5. So on R4, we should not pick support so that we can counter on R5. I still think... Wait, let me just check what EDG banned before I... Okay, so Kennen's gone. So we don't... They're banning AP tops, but... And they're banning tops they don't want to play Fiora into, but I think Jace and Poppy can both go top into Fiora. So we don't really need to worry about our top matchup. We have two champions that can deal with that. I think picking something in mid that makes it really hard to get onto our Jace and our Kai'Sa, or again something in jungle. I mean, we could go Ivern. We could also go Viego for some clean up off of the poke, but we can put Poppy jungle. We have options, but we want peel. This is what we want. So again, I think Kennen would actually be quite good for us if it was available. I think Gragas. I think Gragas would be pretty good. It's kind of rough into the Fiora though, so meh. I think we could go something like Lissandra in mid lane. This is really hard for these champs to engage into. What else could we take? We certainly have options. So let's see what they end up going for. Cassante, okay, so the Cassante, surprising that we've not seen much of it this series yet. It's a very hard lane. It's a very hard lane, for one. It does bring solid peel. So thematically it works. Thematically it works. Although Cassante mid, Jace top looks really good here, actually. I think if they go Cassante mid, Jace top, it's much, much better. Varus Nautilus. Okay. R5. They go Varus Naut. Even more engage. I talked about Naut being something that we could ban before. Again, Varus actually would have been a really good ban for us. I think Varus is actually quite good for EDG. I think what they've got going is like a pick, skirmish, engage comp, which can definitely find kills on our Jace and our Kai'Sa, and it gives them a win condition. So not as bad drafting from EDG this time. But on R5, we want disengage. There is Braum, there is Ali, there is Milio into the Varus, but this is really rough into the Naut, so I don't think Milio is the way to go. One thing to consider when you're looking for disengage is Renata, but I don't think Renata's good here. She can just get popped by Varus Nautilus. We could potentially look for Morg here. I think you're going to get a rough lane phase, but Black Shield is very, very strong into their draft. And then there's also Enchanters. But I think a lot of the Enchanters struggle against Varus Nautilus. So I think the best option would be Braum or Ali. And they go with Rakan. Rakan can kind of peel. He prefers engaging, but he's not terrible at peel. Yeah, I think this series from Weibo was very underwhelming. Also, while we're talking about R5, let's talk about the fact that they're not going Jace top, Cassante mid, which would be a lot better for them. Oh, Weibo's coach is Daney. Wow, I didn't know that, actually. Interesting. He used to be on one. So yeah, again, like, I don't like the R5. I like the R1. The R2 has weakness. The R3 had weakness. The R4 had weakness, but had an interesting thing where they could put Cassante mid and Jace top, and it would be much better for them. But they just didn't do it. So they lose points for that as well. And then the R5 I think is also bad, and I don't think their bans were particularly good either in either phase. So I think this draft is pretty poor. I think this draft is pretty poor. Is it bad? Is it worse? No. I'm gonna go with poor, but this one's bordering on bad. This one is bordering on bad. So now that we've reviewed, because Weibo are gonna win this game. And I think they looked like clearly the better team in this series, but they struggled in a couple of their games, and it was actually the two where they had the... Was it the two where they had the weaker drafts? No, one of the ones where they had a good draft, they won, right? Well, they threw, yeah. But I think game 1 and game 3 was where they won draft hardest, right? And they stomped those games. I think Weibo was clearly the better team. But in terms of draft, what we can do now is we can evaluate the Weibo Gaming average. Why is there a thing that says Weirdo Gaming here? Did Dutch put this? This wasn't me. The Weibo Gaming average of this, 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 and this. Their average score is a 3.75. So they are slightly under average in terms of their drafting. Their drafting is more poor than it is mid. That's not a good look. It's definitely not a good look for Weibo Gaming. So I would expect this might put them, even though it's under average, I don't think the average team, or do I think the average team is going to be average at drafting? That's a very interesting case. Potentially. And I think they might be just bang average. They might be somewhere in the middle in terms of like when you evaluate all the teams. So yeah, that's Weibo Gaming finished, and now we'll be moving on to the next team, which is LNG. LNG, the third seed from the LPL. I have one YouTube notification, just to stream. Right, let me edit the title of my stream and the description. LPL Summer Playoff 2023. What was LNG's first match? It was actually versus Weibo. Now LNG have a lot more series here because it's gonna take a while to review LNG because they're gonna have one here, one here, one here. That's 3, 4, 5, and then one in regionals. So there's gonna be 6 series for LNG. But we're gonna be reviewing them in their first match of the playoffs versus Weibo Gaming. So let's swap the title to LNG versus Weibo Gaming. Let's see. Okay. I don't need this. I need this. LNG versus Wiggle Gaming in 1. And I will have already watched this because I reviewed it from the side of Weibo. But this time we're reviewing it from the side of LNG. So, very different look at this series. Now my question is, where did everybody go? Because I had 8 viewers, and now I have 0. Or I think I have 1. Hello to the 1 viewer. Whoever you are out there. I'm supposed to be pressing the add button between games, but I forgot, so I guess I'm doing it between series. Right, I'm going to take a short break, and then I'll start on the LNG versus Weibo series. Okay. Let's get this started. So, if we first talk about bands, we've got Kai'Sa is red band, Trist is blue band, LeBlanc is blue band, Rel is blue band, and then that's all of it. So the main thing that I'm noticing is that Ivern is open. There's also the fact that Maokai is open, but that leads into a Silas angle, which is interesting. So blue are not going to be B1ing Maokai because Silas, well, they probably would still B1 Maokai potentially, but with Silas banned, it wouldn't, in theory. But with Silas not banned, rather, it wouldn't end well for them. They could get silenced if they pick the Maokai. So, B1. Well, let's talk about blue bans first, of course. We're banning Rel, we're banning LB, we're banning Trist. For the Trist one, I think this is weird because we can B1 this, and it's one of the best champions on the patch. It still is. To this day, Trist is still broken. Rel, this ban shows that we want to play vulnerable carries, which I think B1 supports, as does this one. Also, people hated LB on this patch, so they're banning it. Blue has much more room to target ban than red does. Red should be banning the best B1s on the patch, and blue get that luxury. The Jace. This is what the engage ban in terms of rel was for. There's still plenty of engage available though. That said, Jace doesn't necessarily lose to engage all the time. You can put pieces around him, you can put disengage pieces around him, but in isolation, he's weak to engage. Now, it's a 2-role flex. It can go top, it can go mid. But he really likes playing for poke. He's like very much one-dimensional in terms of theme. He loves playing for poke. He can play for like skirmishes as well. But yeah, it's his favorite way to play is poke. So that's what we're signaling right now. So what you'd expect Weibo to do is to pick champions that have the ability to go in. So Maokai does, it's flexible. Cassante, somewhat flexible. It can kind of go in. So far both of these champions are okay into the Jace. So now that we see, let me just title this B1. On B2, B3, now that we see Maokai, Cassante, first off we see Maokai. Can we Jace top and pick Sylas mid? Well, first, one of the hardest lane answers to Sylas mid is Jace, which Weibo Gaming can't pick because we have it. Okay? So we could pick Sylas into the Maokai. Also, Jace into Cassante, completely fine for Jace. So, now Cassante could flex mid, in which case Jace top could become an issue. So, probably too early to pick Sylas. In summary, pick Sylas. Okay. What do we want? Well, we want champions that flex between disengage and poke. Here's why. If Weibo Gaming continue to draft things, so let's put it this way: Weibo Gaming are between engage and disengage right now. They could go either way. If we flex, I don't know why I'm stuttering. If we flex range disengage, then if they commit to engage, we commit to disengage. If they commit to disengage, we commit to range. And either way, we're going to end up with a thematic advantage. So, what champions can do this? There's things like Ezreal, there's Lilia, normally Maokai, but Maokai is taken away. There's Zeri, there is Karma. All of these things can do that. There's a lot of options. Renekton doesn't do that at all. Now Ziggs, okay, so let me just title this R1, B1, B2, sorry. Oh wait, no, I already have titled it here. B2, B3. Renekton doesn't do this. He likes having melee champs to hit, but if he needs to dive onto enemy carries, he's going to struggle through Maokai Cassante. But, so the B2 I really didn't like. However, the B3 changes things. Ziggs gives us two things. Okay? One, magic damage. We desperately needed this. Two, range. It's going to be very hard. Very hard. I would be willing to say impossible with Kai'Sa to ever match our range. for red side now. So the rest of our picks should prioritize protecting our carries and making it so they can't be engaged on. So Renekton here can stand in front of his carries and threaten whoever wants to engage. Like he can say, you want to engage on my carries? Come on then, run at me. Run at Renekton. Renekton like hitting you. Renekton happy. So that's the way that Renekton functions in this draft now, and that's how Ziggs changes things. This trickles into the second round of bans. So now we want to ban engage that we can't stop with our B4, B5 picks. So I generally call this snap engage. Now, what are some forms of snap engage? Think Gragas Yasuo. Think Jarvan Rumble. You know, these sorts of things. They're snap, bam, engage, that's it. The engage starts, it finishes, that's the whole thing. So I think Jarvan Rumble would be really hard to deal with. They can put the Maokai into support, they can play Jarvan, they can play Rumble mid or Cassante mid. They can actually put the Cassante mid into the Jace, which is fine, and then they can put the Rumble into the Renekton, which actually turns their top matchup into a winning matchup instead of a losing one. So I think a Rumble ban and potentially a Jarvan ban would be really good for us. But we want to be banning reliable snap engage. Like Rakan can do it. Nautilus can do this. They take the Azir. They ban the Naut, that's good for us. We ban the Rakan. So, you know, Rakan, this is reliable. I'd say it's like semi-snap engage. You see it coming, but often can't stop it if he gets a flank or the right time. Okay? So it's like semi-snap engage. It's not true snap engage like Gragas Yasuo or Diana Yasuo. It's just BAM! But like, or Malphite, you know? We're somewhat weak to Malphite, but they've picked both solo lanes, so we don't need to worry about Malphite. And then Ezreal, I don't think this... the Ezreal ban, I think even Ezreal struggles here with being outranged. Also, this Azir pick, by the way, from Weibo is absolutely terrible. So far, I think LNG are doing quite well. I think they're doing pretty well so far. See what they go. They go Leona. Okay, so Leona ult is like... I wouldn't say it's snap engage. Leona engage is quite telegraphed. So we can deal with that, and we can just pick disengage tools. So into B4, B5, we want disengage tools. So we've got Alistar, I think would be good. We've got Braum, I think would be good. We could potentially go Renata here. Renata. Enchanters. I don't think enchanters are as good when you have Ziggs. Like, you don't have an AD carry to enchant. Staff of Flowing Water is like fine, but it's nothing like the other enchanter items, and enchanters just like protecting an AD carry, so I don't think enchanter is the way to go. I'd be picking one of these things. And then for jungle, we could go for Kindred, more range and disengage. We could go for Ivern for disengage. We could go for Xin for disengage. We could go Poppy. I think this is a really good Poppy angle for us. But realistically, anything that brings disengage to our draft, again. So let's see what we end up with. Okay, Alistar. I mean, this is good. This is one of the things that we talked about. That's fine. But I really hate blind Alistar, but it's good here. Surely it's not Zac or Skarner, right? Nocturne. I don't think this is a Nocturne game either. Although, okay, so in jungle, another thing that we can consider Viego, Kha'Zix, etc. Clean up from our poke. I think Viego and Kha'Zix are the premier champions at doing this. But But Nocturne is like, he's like, for any Brits in watching, I would call this the B-Tech version. He's just not as good. But that's what they're going for. They're going for cleanup on their poke, which I think is fine, and Nocturne is going to be able to hit them if they're running into him. I don't think it's bad, I just think there's better options like Viego, Kindred, Poppy. All of these things I would like more. Ivern. And then rounding out on R5, they go with Zeri, and I think we won draft pretty hard. Pretty convincingly. It's very hard to play these champions against the Jace Ziggs. It's going to be very difficult for Weibo in this game. Apparently not, because they win. But, that can happen. You don't always win when you get a good draft. In general, overall, what would I rate this draft? I think this was good. The Jace B one is like meh. Then these bans are fine. Trist, I think you could have left open. The B2, I wouldn't have liked if the B3 didn't make it such a win for them. And then the B4 is really good, and the B5 is like fine. The Rakan ban is good. The Ezreal ban doesn't make much sense. All in all, I think it was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. LNG versus Weibo Gaming, game 1. There's going to be 4 of these games. Game 2, game 3, and game 4. Okay. Let's make these a little wider. Notes 1313, of course. We will continue this down here. Oops. There we go. And they get a nice little rating of 5, actually. I thought it was good. 5, yeah. They'll get a 5. So, not bad from LNG so far. We'll take a 5. Interesting that they managed to lose this game. I'd be interested in watching the game and seeing how they played and how that ended up happening. I'm pretty sure I've seen the game, but I don't remember how it happened. Why am I saying game 3? This will be game 2. Right, looking at game 2, let's check some of the bans. So Ivern is taken away by blue this side. Interesting. LeBlanc is also taken away, and Rel is also taken away, and I think these are fairly solid blue bans. Again, it shows a want to play high range carries. So if we talk about blue bans, same as game 1, shows a desire to play vulnerable carries with the Rel and LB bans. Then here we've got Kai'Sa banned by red, and all of these things are open. So B1, Maokai is a really good B1. I would have changed the Ivern ban to a Silas ban if the plan was to B1 Maokai. The reason for this is that, 1, Maokai soft counters Ivern. I'd say soft counter because it's really not that big of a deal, but at least if they go Ivan, you have that little soft counter. Saplings in the bush, right? That's saplings in his bushes. 2, Silas hard counters Maokai. So, and then 3, Silas is good at killing vulnerable Garys. I think we're showing a very clear desire to pick Jace on B2, E3 as well. But Maokai, aside from the fact that Silas exists, I think is a really good B1. It's very flexible. It can flex pretty much every theme. It can flex multiple roles. Jungle is by far its best role, but it can play top and support. So yeah, I like Maokai as a B1. They respond with Cassante Azir, and once again, it's very similar. Very similar. Game 1, they are flexing engage, disengage at the moment, and we are flexing range, engage, disengage. We kind of have everything. If we flex range, disengage, we can do the same as game 1. Okay, so I think Jace is good here. Good here. Jace Maokai combo is something that people really like. I do think it's good. It brings a lot of poke from your mid and your jungle, and it allows your Maokai to go Demonic Embrace. You have your AD mid with your Maokai. Alongside that, I think we could probably we can either counter top or pick high range bot and then ban out engage tools. For top, a counter that helps peel would be solid. Also, things like Jax or Gwen are okay because the way we want to draft demands that Weibo Gaming run into us. So we could potentially go Jace Ziggs again. But let's see. Okay, so there's the Gwen. So I mentioned Gwen. I don't mind this at all. And the Jace. So yeah, this is pretty good so far. So as I've said, second round of bans. As I just said, we want to ban. Well, actually, we want to ban again. Snap engage, regular engage is really bad into us. Like telegraphed engage, because they have to run into Gwen and they have to get through Maokai. It's not good for them to go like regular engage picks. But things like, you know, Malphite we don't need to worry about because their solo laners are gone, but they could play like a Gragas Yasuo bot lane. And then, you know, they can, if we're going like Jace Ziggs, they can Gragas cast our Jace Ziggs and they can Gragas ult, and that's their snap engage. Hello FPX, I'm doing good. How are you, sir? Or madam? I guess I don't know which of them you are, but most of my audience is male, so I tend to assume at this point. I think like 98% of my audience is male. So yeah, we want to ban snap engage. Jarvan as well. Jarvan Rumble, like I said, Rumble's not really pickable here because they already have Cassante Azir. Let's see what we end up banning. Rakan, yeah, so look, as talked about before, as talked about in game 1, this draft is very, very similar to game 1. Also, they went with Vi, which is kind of snappy engage. Like, you can't really do much against it, which is what makes it snap engage. But it's telegraphed and it's slow. The main thing is that you can't really do anything about it. Well, you can. There's things you can draft, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Rakan is semi-snap engage. And it's a fine ban. Let's see what else we ban. Oh, they actually missed a ban. I remember this from when I was reviewing it, because I had to check whether it was a legitimate missed ban. Okay, the Neela ban is weird because we want to draft to outrange, and if we hard outrange, then Neela can't play. So Neela ban is weird. We don't need to ban Neela here. That's really not something we need to be worried about. They take Leona, so they have very traditional engage. So on b4, b5, they have very traditional, straightforward engage. We can take very traditional, straightforward disengage with a bot lane carry that has high range. I'm thinking Jinx Lulu. I'm thinking Zeri Lulu. I'm thinking Jinx Braum, I think would be, or Zeri Braum, or Ezreal. What would I like most with Ezreal here? I mean, Karma, but I don't think Karma brings enough disengage. So maybe, I mean, Ezreal Braum is playable. You could do like Ezreal Alistar, that brings you disengage. The Ezreal allows the Alistar to roam around the map. All of these things are good. So I think these are the bot lane packages we should be looking for. Varus Alistar. Okay, so Varus is he's a very nice hybrid AD carry, not in terms of damage breakdown, although he does also do that, but he can engage with his R, he can poke if he goes lethality, he can play kite back. So he does fit what we want to do. He's not as good on his own if you leave him isolated as Ezreal, so it's harder to roam the Alistar, but I think it's fine, and I think it fits the draft. And we've ended up in a position where we've got 3 different facets of poke with the Maokai, the Jace, and the Varus. It's very hard for Weibo to deal with it. All of their champs want to try and run it. I mean, Azir and Zeri don't necessarily. They would prefer to be moving backwards, but they've got the Cassante, the Vi, and the Leona, who are going to have to run through a Zeri and a Maokai, and also while getting like disrupted by Alistar. So I think LNG overall, again, I think this is a good draft. I think it's very, very similar to Game 1 draft. And one thing to note is that I like the Gwen. So yeah, I'm going to give them another good draft. I think both of these were good from the side of LNG. Yes, I agree 100% FPX. I've actually reviewed this series from Weibo's side already. So if you want to see what I think about that, if I look at my channel, I can show you this one here, Weibo Gaming versus LNG. This is the same series, but from the perspective of Weibo. So I talked about everything that Weibo did in this video, and I said the same thing that you said. I said, why are they picking their support on 4 instead of leaving it to 5 for counterpick? It didn't make sense, and also the Leona didn't make sense in general. Let's check game 3. Again, I've got some spoilers because I've already watched these series from the perspective of Weibo. But what I thought coming into making these videos from watching a lot of pro play, I thought that LNG were one of the better drafting teams in the world, and so far they've got a 5-2 drafts in a row. So the results are aligning with my suspicion, I guess I would say. I have some DMs on Discord that I'm gonna check. Copy this across. New file. Game 3. Oops. Get rid of these. Oh, I didn't check who won in game 2. I mean, I know that LNG won. Okay. Just responding to a DM. Hi Regis, how you doing? I've got some stuff to announce at some point, which will be really cool. But I'm just working on that in the background right now. Okay. I doubt LNG are picking Zed. So we have Kai'Sa is open, actually. Trist is also open. Ivern is red band, Maokai is red band, and then they're red banning Vi, which is really weird, and LeBlanc is blue band. So already, I think the red bands, I've talked about this in the previous series, so the video that will come out before this one when this is a video, but in this game, there on this patch, I think there are 3 really broken champions. There's Kai'Sa, there is Trist, and there is Ivern. And only one of them is banned so far. So what happens when red bans one of them and blue ban none of them, and this is why I think red should ban the other 2 as well, is that there are 2 left available. In this case, it's Kai'Sa and Trist. So this is going to be a trade, most likely. Now, sometimes you would think this is even, but this favors blue because they get to choose which side of the trade they get. So blue here are choosing the Kai'Sa side of that trade. So I think red should be banning Tristana Kai'Sa here as well. But the Ivern ban is good. I like that. The Maokai ban, I think, is only necessary if blue ban Silas, but you see what blue ban before you ban, so you can respond to that. So I don't think it's really necessary. Into R1, R2. First off, Tristana. Let's make sure they pick that. Okay, they take Rel. So Rel, we've talked about this in the previous series as well. Rel is like Braum. She's not like Braum in the fact that she's a disengaged champion. She's very, very strong at engage. But she tunnels you into engage. This makes your draft really not flexible. Inflexible? Is that a word? Really inflexible? Yeah. It makes your draft really inflexible. And the problem with that is that we're so early in the draft that we want to be keeping things flexible. She does flex roles, but she doesn't flex themes. So she can play jungle and support, and she can try to peel, but she can't really play for range. And yeah, she can try to peel, but she's not the best at it. She loves playing in engage. So I think Rel should be more of an R3, R4, R5 sort of pick than an R1 pick. That's why I don't like Rel early in these drafts. Because now, as well, blue have the potential, if we're showing that we're so heavily indexed into engage, blue can pick up things like Poppy, they can pick up things like Braum. Makes it life really difficult for us. And then we go Azir. So I really don't like the Azir. Not because I hate Azir, but one, he's countered by range. He's really good at playing when he needs to engage. He can shuffle in, he can ult. Great. He's really good at playing when he needs to disengage. Awesome. He can ult them out, he can kite back. he's really good at playing when he has a range advantage because he can poke them out and they can't hit him and they can't get to him. What he's not good at is dealing with champions that outrange him when he can't engage, right? So if they're playing again, if we're playing against high range carries with disengaged package around them, Azir's really going to struggle. And so far, the enemy have Kai'Sa, which on this patch is a 3000 range nuke. Azir can't deal with this. The other reason I don't like this is that it gives Tristana to blue side. So compared to the first two drafts, I'm really not liking LNG's draft at all so far. Let's see what Weibo pick. They go Tristana, and they take Alistar. So they're doing exactly what I said they should. They're picking higher range carries, 1 AP, 1 AD, with disengage tools around it. Alistar, really good lane answer into the rel. So now life is very difficult for us. So on R3, we need ways to kill Kai'Sa and Trist that Alistar can't stop. We need some snap engage. So we could look for like Jarvan Rumble. We could look for Yasuo Gragas. We could look for Malphite. And I think Malphite is okay here, but we might want to move that later in the draft. From support, we could look for Nautilus. This would put Rel into the jungle, but we still have the thing there. Or we could go for Nautilus. We could maybe go Vi here. I think Vi gives us, as much as I hate Vi, in this predicament where we're so far behind in draft and we need ways to kill these carries, Vi does that. That's what she brings. And that's what we need. Oh, we actually banned Vi, so we can't go Vi. Poppy. Okay, Lee Sin I prefer over Poppy. Hopefully they go Lee Sin and not Poppy. Nope, they go Poppy. Okay, so why do I not like Poppy? Poppy is bad because Poppy wants to kite. Azir wants to kite. You can't kite if they don't run at you. We're massively outranged. So it's our job to initiate. We need to get to them. And that's not what Poppy does. She stops them getting to you. She doesn't get to them. So I think they're actually losing this draft really hard so far. Into the second round of bans, since we need to get to them, we want to ban things that stop us getting to them. We need to ban disengage tools. They've got support, they've got mid, and they've got AD. So for jungle, Poppy's gone because we've taken it, but there's also Kindred. There is Xin, but Xin's not particularly strong on this patch. There is Ivan, but that's already banned. There is Maokai, but that's already banned. So we've actually got pretty good coverage in jungle. Kindred would be pretty bad for us, though. Like, it's hard to deal with her bringing even more range and disengage. And then in top lane, I think we're pretty weak to anything that likes us running at them. So things like Darius, things like Ilaoi, things like Gwen. And then there's also things that actually disengage, like Gragas as well. So any of these things I think we should be banning. Rumble. So Rumble ban, this doesn't do what Weibo Gaming want. Neither does Nocturne. So neither of our bans offer Weibo Gaming what they need. So we shouldn't be banning them. So I don't like these bans. So far, I really don't like pretty much anything that Weibo have done. And then on 4, okay. So R4, we go Renekton. This is terrible for a number of reasons. One, we're giving them top counter pick for no reason. 2, it doesn't bring snap engage. 3, it can't get past Alistar. I really don't like this. I think it's just not offering us what we need. If, with this comp, okay, Rel, Azir, Poppy, Renekton, Okay? If Weibo needed to run at us, if Weibo needed to fight us, we'd be so happy. But the problem is they don't, because Trist is just going to shoot us. Kaiser's just going to throw W's at us. They can draft more things that just don't need to approach us, and they can just stay away from us. And that's going to make it really, really difficult for us as LNG here. And the Lilia. Oh, this Lilia is so good from Weibo as well. I remember reviewing this draft as Weibo from Weibo's side, and I really liked it because, again, the Lilia is just throwing. Excuse me. The Lilia is just throwing more poke at us that we just can't deal. We can't close the gap. We can't get on them. And then, obviously, on R5, R5, we're picking an ADC that struggles versus being hard outranged. So yeah, this is a problem. We saved counter pick to counter ourselves. Hello, moved shapes. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I think this is a really rough draft. It's bad. It's really bad. I think it might be. I don't think it's quite bad enough to be terrible, but it's really bad. Like, it's a solid 2 of bad. A solid 2 of bad. Wow, you come from the future and KT are winning worlds? We're reviewing LNG now. We've finished Weibo, we're now on to LNG. So since you weren't here for the whole draft, I'll talk about why I dislike literally every part of it. So first off, the red bans, the 3 strongest champs on the patch are Tristana, Ivern, Kai'Sa. They ban Ivern, which leaves 2 of them open, which means that what should happen is it should be a trade. But this favors blue because blue get to choose what side of the trade they go. So they go Kai'Sa, so this should be a Kai'Sa Trist trade, but Weibo gets to choose. But then they don't go Trist, they pick a Rel Azir, and now Weibo get the Trist. Not only do they get the Trist, but the Azir is hard outranged, and the only way that they can try and win is by killing these carries. So they pick Alistar alongside the Trist Kai'Sa. Makes it really hard for the Rel to engage. So now they need Snap engage, but instead they pick Poppy, who wants to kite back. But you're not kiting back against 2 champions that are hard outranging you. And then they pick the Renekton, which is the same thing. Like, he's kind of engagey, but he's more of a follow-up engage or a setup engage than anything, and he's not really going to get to these carries. He can't get through the Renekton. And then blue pick Lilia, which brings even more range damage, and they pick Cassandra, which is another obstacle for them to get through, and then they pick Aphelios, who can't deal with being outranged. So, like, the entire way through this draft, LNG were really bad. But the first 2, they drafted really well in Game 1 and Game 2. But yeah, they win this game, right? Or do they lose? Yeah, Weibo win. Wait, do they? Or do they throw? Okay, so there are going to be 5 games here. There are going to be 5 games. They are the same game I reviewed on Weibo side, yeah. It's the same series. but now we're reviewing them from the perspective of LNG. It will take some time, yeah, but I'm gonna get through it. Hopefully going to be streaming most days for a while now, so yeah. The main reason I'm so far behind is that I wasn't home for quite a long time, so I wasn't streaming. World starts somewhere in October, I think, but that will be play-ins, so yeah. I can continue doing this through play-ins, I think. Ooh. Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see if anyone shakes the meta up. There's plenty that can be played, but whether it will be or not remains to be seen. Right. Look at game 4. So we've got Trist banned by blue. We've also got Rel banned by blue. We never see Braum banned, but I was thinking of adding Braum to the list of things to track. We've got Kai'Sa banned by red and LeBlanc banned by red. So I think these blue bans are fine. Again, blue bans, these signal the same as game 1 and game 2, where we're banning things that punish vulnerable carries. We're wanting to flex range disengage again. No Silas ban with Mao B1. That's something to talk about. And then if we go into B1, we're going Maokai. Same as, I think it was game 2. Very flexible champion in terms of role and theme. Biggest answer is Silas. Silas is weak in lane to Jace. Engage bans. We're signaling Jace B2, B3 very hard. But I think this B1 is fine. I think the fact that we want Jace makes it harder for them to go Silas. You're not going to pick Silas and Jace. I think that's very, very difficult to draft early. So, yeah, B1 so far is good. They take away the Ivern. I guess one thing to add is that as talked about in game 2, Ivern is open, but we're more okay with that than usual because of the Maokai soft counter into Ivern, where you throw saplings in the bushes. Right, on B2, B3, so we see Ivern Azir. So far, they have limited engage, and Azir is weak to being outranged. So we should pick high range carries and then ban out snap engage and look to draft disengage tools around them. Jace makes a ton of sense here. And then we can take Zeri or Ezreal or Jinx. You know, any of these are completely fine. Okay. Jace, like I've said, Jace makes a lot of sense. Xayah doesn't outrange the Azir. Struggles to hit anyone here. Yeah, doesn't fit our draft. And Weibo Gaming can now draft to outrange us, forcing us to engage. And so far, the only engage tool we have at all is Maokai. So I think the Xayah is bad, but the Jace is good. Then they go Cassante, so they're drafting more Peel. So they're forcing us to engage through Cassante, Ivern, and Azir. Well, so far they're not forcing us to. And what would force us... So second round of bans. What would force us into a position where we need to engage is a higher range hyper carry like Jinx or Zeri. So we should probably be banning these. Okay. I think that's all that needs to be said about the second round of bans. We should be banning Jinx, Zeri. Varus is like pretty good too. Zeri, yeah. I mean, Varus, oops. Varus falls into this category too. Good bans. They end up taking Nautilus, which just completely doesn't fit their draft at all. And I think, okay, let's think, is there any way that we can get more range into our draft? We could pick a range support. One thing that I think it's so B4, B5, rough lane into Nautilus, but Milio helps Xayah reach and makes range disadvantage much less prevalent, which makes Weibo Gaming need to engage again. Also brings slight magic damage. Which we need at the moment. Okay, what is Jace into Cassante lane like? It's fine. If there's a jungle that can set up Jace for failure, then, you know, Jace can be punished pretty hard. But into Ivern, I think Jace should be fine. So we can potentially flex Jace top, yeah, and that would allow us to pick like a high range AP mid. But again, no matter what we do, our Xayah is going to be stranded. And I think Milio is the only thing that can allow Xayah into the game. She's very good against Nautilus, though. I don't know why they picked Nautilus into Xayah. Maokai, Jace. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Xerath mid, yeah, you could potentially go Xerath. Xerath's not the best on this patch. He's not like broken like he is after the changes. But yeah, I think there is a very valid case to be made that moving Jace top could be the way to go, and then you pick something in mid. Like, I mean, you could put Ziggs in mid, you could play Syndra mid, you could play Talia mid. Talia would be pretty good here, I think. So yeah, I think Milio's worth considering. There's also Karma can help us. No, I don't think Karma can help that much, really. Yeah, I think we might need Melio here to... Well, what are we worried about? We're worried about, like, Jinx, Cogmore. We're worried about Jinx, Cogmore, Ezreal. So how can we deal with this? We could pick Sustain. Although that doesn't really help against Jinx, but it helps against Ezreal. I think it's a very tricky situation for LNG now. I think this is part of the problem with early picking Xayah like this, is that now you're in a really tricky situation where Weibo Gaming's R5 should be beating us. So yeah. So potentially, since the situation is so tricky, we could potentially try to cause chaos with things like Blitzcrank and maybe like Emil into the Cassante. I think that would be a fine line to take. It's not ideal, but again, we're behind Renata. See, Leona, I don't think Leona can lock down like an Ezreal or something. I think the Blitz would have been better if they picked that here. But they end up going for the Leona, and they end up taking Jax. So, Leona, I think we're really weak to Ezreal now. Let's see what Weibo go. Oh, they went Ezreal as well. Oh, that's rough. Yeah, it's rough. Draft is rough, and it all went downhill with the blind Xayah. Yeah, I think this one, it's nowhere near as bad as their previous one. Definitely nowhere near as bad as their previous one. But I think this one's poor rather than bad. This one's a poor draft. Oops. Okay. Got one more game to go. Ah, right. Game 5. Let's find the video. Okay, so looking at game 5, we've got Kai'Sa banned by red. We've got Trist is open. We've got Ivan open. We've got LeBlanc open. Jace open. Red. Okay, so that's all the bans. So if we talk about the red bans here, this is very similar. No, this is the same, I think. The same as game 3, I think it was. Where this leads to a Kai'Sa Trist. Not Kai'Sa Trist. This time, this leads to a trade of 2 of the broken champs. This time, it's Trist for Ivern, but blue get to choose. So it's slightly losing for red. Then they go B1 Tristana, which is very expected. And then we go into R1, R2, and they go Varus, which is weird that they have so much prio on the Varus here. And then, like, obviously, they should be picking Ivern. Like, this is the big one. Needs to be picked. They go Varus Nautilus. So, a couple of things that I don't like with this, which is basically going to be everything. So, Varus is okay to pick early. I think picking Varus early is fine. If you really like Varus, if you're really proficient on Varus, it's okay. Varus, he can technically flex into mid lane, but 9 times out of 10 he's going to be going bot lane. But he has multiple builds. He can play lethality, in which case he's like a range-based champion. He can play on hit, or crit, in which case he's a disengage, sort of kite back themed champion. And he can also play AP, which is sort of somewhere between the two, but then he can function for engage as well, because he can use his R as an engage tool. If you think Ruler at Worlds in Season 7, what he did to Faker. So Varus can function in that kind of comp. Nautilus, though, very, very heavily indexed into engage. So Varus, pretty flexible. Fine to pick early. Bad because it gives them either. That's basically the downside. And then Nautilus is not flexible. Only goes support unless it's not mid, which is bad. It's also like 90% engage focused. So now blue can draft hard into disengage and make our life difficult. Well, I don't think they should draft hard into disengage. I think they should lean into disengage and make our life difficult. But yeah, like the problems with this R1, R2 is that 1, we're giving them Ivern, and then 2, we're showing our hand. We're saying we're going to be playing for engage. Draft disengage against us. That's basically what we're saying. And I think we're really weak to like Ivern Braum now on B2, B3. Moving on. They go Ivern, Leona. The Leona doesn't make any sense. And then we go Jax. So R3. Why are we blinding top lane? And it's Jax versus Trist Ivern. It's really hard for him to hit anyone. They can counter with Gragas, Poppy, Kennen, etc. We now force ourselves to ban 2 of these. We're removing our ability to have like ban other things that we might want to ban, because now we have to ban the things that fuck over our Jax because we've just blinded Jax for some reason. All I can think is pure comfort pick. Like we really like Jax, we really like Varus. These are comfort champions. Also Rumble as well. Poppy, Kennen. Rumble doesn't really do as much for Weibo because they want disengage and range in their comp. But if we look at the second round of bans, the Sante kind of makes sense because it's solid disengage and peel, but it's countered by Jax. So yeah, I'm not really sure why. And then the Rumble, this isn't what Weibo Gaming need. They need peel and a high range carry. Yeah, I don't know. They don't even need a high range carry. They just need peel. Like they can go. I mean, Zaya's banned, but they can go. Aphelios. You know, they can do anything. They can play Sivir into the Varus Knot. They could play Sivir and kite back with that. I think it's really easy for Weibo to draft now. Moving into R4. How do we salvage this? Just go knock Ahri and pray. That honestly, that might be a good shout. Let's think. So we're really weak to things like Aphelios Braum on B4. Oh, they've got Leona, sorry. We're really weak to things like Aphelios Gragas. Yeah, Aphelios Gragas we're really weak to. Or Aphelios Kennen. Or Aphelios Poppy. But Gragas and Kennen are much better because Weibo need magic damage. So it should be like Aphelios Gragas, or I think Sivir as well. Like I said, Sivir Gragas, Sivir Kennen. Really hard for us to deal with. How can we deal with that? We could try to make our draft all about range. But then Weibo can just match it, so it's very, very hard. I think it's very, very difficult now for us. So I think what Move Shapes said in chat is probably the correct way to go. We should draft pick tools that allow us to snowball and make thematic advantages useless. This isn't a reliable way to win the game, but it gives you a win condition. It's what you do when you're behind in draft and you need a way out. So there is Ahri, there is Lissandra, there is Vi, which is banned. There is Nocturne. There's what else is really, really good in pick? There's Lee Sin. There's like Zoe you could play. Yeah, I think you could also draft Fiddle. I agree. Fiddle would be good here, but there's no way in hell they play Fiddle. I don't think even Tarzan plays Fiddlesticks. But yeah, exactly. Like it just surprises them out of nowhere. It gets a pick, and then you can try and play off of that. So that's what we should be looking for. Again, Azir doesn't really help us do this. Yeah, I think they're just gonna draft Gragas Jinx, Gragas Zeri, or Gragas Ezreal as well. Like very, very weak to Gragas Ezreal. Can also Kennen Ezreal. Yeah, I don't think Azir is it. Let's see what they end up going for. Poppy, I mean, okay, Poppy Zeri kind of gives us a way out. So Poppy is disengaged, and it does win lane into the Jax. So that's good for Weibo. Zeri, it is a high range carry that likes to kite back, and it's hard for us to reach. But the way out now is that all of their damage is relying on auto attacks, and they also don't have any magic damage. So we want to be picking something that really, really benefits from itemizing armor. I don't think there's any way we could play Jax jungle and go Malphite top. Actually, no. Like honestly, can we just Jax jungle Malphite top? Because Malphite is completely broken in this draft. So potential for Jax jungle Malphite top. Like honestly, Malphite is so good. Double AD carry. It's a pot. There's literally nothing stopping him. A physical damage top laner. No damage jungler. No damage support. Rammus? Oh, potentially Rammus jungle, honestly. Potentially. Like, he's going to stat check the living shit out of everyone. He's kind of going to get run over by Ivan in terms of camps. But we have bot prio, and that's it. So yeah, Ivan's going to fly ahead of him in terms of camps, but he is going to just stat check everyone. The problem is he's going to struggle to get on them. So I don't think Rammus is the way. I think the Jax jungle Malphite top is much better. We could also Jax jungle Nasus top. Full armor Nasus with a Frozen Heart Withering Zeri would make the game very, very difficult for them. But again, I don't think Zika plays Emax Nasus. Obviously, it's what I play. I think this is a really good game to play it. In terms of actual junglers that benefit from armor, you could go Sejuani, and they'll never be able to kill it, really. I mean, they will eventually be able to kill it, but just... Oh, Sejuani's banned, so you can't do that. But if you could, it would be good. What else is there? Let's take a look at some junglers. Oh, you could go Wukong maybe, and it would be really hard to kill him through the passive and through Death Dance. And it plays into your comp fairly nicely, so Wukong's okay. Graves, I think Graves would struggle to hit. Graves is not hitting Zeri, he's not hitting Trist, but a lot of the time when it's full AD, you can consider Graves, but I don't think this is the game for Graves. Yeah, I think it might be a Wukong, or Wukong is probably the best you can do in jungle. And then in terms of, so for pure jungle pick, probably Wukong. But I think the Jax jungle Malphite top is genuinely a thing, yeah. Okay, I mean, I didn't consider Skarner because who plays Skarner? But Skarner can make picks, which is like part of what we talked about. And he can hard itemize armor. So to be fair, I actually quite like the Skarner. It's not bad. Like, it's okay. It gives it, like, we can do something now. We can do something. We can have Jax build Frozen Heart with tabbies. We can have Azir go like Liandry's into Zhonya's. We can have Nautilus stack armor. We can have Ascana build Iceborne, Frozen Heart, Randuin's. Like, we can make ourselves so very tanky that Weibo won't be able to do anything. So this is okay. And this draft overall, it was like, this is fine, this is bad, this is bad, this is meh, and then this is pretty good. And this is quite creative that they came up with this Skarner. So I think overall, I'm going to rate this one at a mid. And now we can get the average of the series, which brings us to an average of 3.8, which is just under mid from this series. So yeah. Right. Another series down. Oh yeah, they did also get 3.8 for the series. Interesting. Okay, well, we've reviewed 2 full series today. So pretty solid stream. Happy with that. Maybe do same again tomorrow. And yeah, thanks to everyone that turned up. I hope you had a good time. I'll see you later. Goodbye.